Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. It was a normal Monday morning, and we had just finished breakfast and were sitting at the kitchen table. I sipped my coffee as I flipped through today's morning paper. At that point, my wife spoke up and said, "William, can you put the paper down? I have something to talk to you about." I put the paper on the table and waited for her to continue. "William, I'm leaving you. I want a divorce." Amanda said, "Is that all?" I asked, while picking up the paper and flipping to the sports section. "I'm serious, William," she insisted. I chose to ignore her words, which obviously annoyed her even more. "Damn it, William. Put down the damn paper and talk to me properly about this. I don't have anything to say except goodbye, which isn't much of a loss anyway, and you've been nothing at all as a wife for the past year, so go away." I put down the paper and stood up to walk to the study, grabbed a notebook and a pen from the desk and an envelope from the drawer, then returned to the kitchen table. I wrote on the first page of my notebook, "Dear Kevin, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank God she's finally leaving me." Just as I was about to put the note in the envelope, something occurred to me. I pulled out one of the lottery tickets I bought last night and put it in the envelope as well, then added, "Maybe if you win the lottery, that's enough money to satisfy someone who's seeing things differently, so she won't cheat on someone else. Good luck, man. You're gonna need it. I sign off, ever grateful William." I folded the note and put it in an envelope, sealed and addressed it, and handed it to Amanda. "Give this to him when you see him." She took the envelope, shock written all over her face. "Just because you think I don't know anything doesn't mean I really don't know anything," I said. After a moment's thought, I took the envelope back from her. "Maybe it would be better if I just mailed it myself. I can't believe you're going to be a good boy and give it to him instead of secretly opening it up and reading it before throwing it away. Now it's time for you to go and pack up your things and get out of my life as soon as you can." "I'm not going anywhere," she said, "and I'm not moving out so you can move your lover in." Looking at her stubborn look, a sudden rush of unspoken emotions welled up inside me. The woman who had once haunted me seemed so strange to me at the moment. All those bits and pieces of experience together, all those vows that I once thought would last forever, all became so ridiculous at this moment. I stood up, poured the rest of my coffee into the accompanying cup, and got ready for work. Before I left, I took one last look at her. The image that had once been so perfect in my mind was now in tatters. Without another word, I turned toward the door, the sound of her sobbing coming from behind me, but the sound never touched my heartstrings again. The marriage, like a well-woven lie, finally drew to a close on this mundane Monday morning. I, on the other hand, chose to say goodbye to this false fairy tale in the calmest way possible. I knew that life was going to go in a whole new direction starting today, and that change started with this seemingly normal morning. The moment I stepped out of the house, I took a deep breath of the slightly cool morning air. The sky was still so blue, the clouds were still so white, and everything was so familiar, yet it seemed all different. I know that this is not the end, but the beginning of a new life. Life is always like that. When one door closes, there is always another window that opens quietly. On the walk to the car, my mind had already begun to work out what I was going to do next. I need to protect my interests and need to take a number of steps to ensure that I am not on the receiving end of this coming storm. But at the moment, I was surprisingly calm, as if I had expected this to happen, or perhaps I had been well prepared for this moment. On the way to the office, I stopped at the bank first. As someone who is used to preparing for the worst, I had anticipated this day. I quickly closed our joint account, emptied the contents of the safe deposit box, and opened a new personal account at another bank closer to the office. Immediately afterward, I called and canceled all of my co-branded credit cards and arranged for new personal cards to be issued. Over the years, I've been preparing for this day as if I were playing a carefully planned game of chess. Every step must be accurate and every detail must not be overlooked. After taking care of that, I started to focus on my day job. It wasn't until the evening that I realized I hadn't eaten lunch all day. I asked Sarah, my administrative assistant, to meet me for dinner and mentioned in passing that I was back on the singles market and could be introduced to her sister if she was still interested. Sarah laughed and said, "Screw her sister, since you're single now, I guess I should be first in line." Sarah has been my secretary since 10 years ago, And because of her outstanding performance, I promoted her to my assistant 4 years ago and then to administrative assistant 2 years ago. I remember one Sunday backyard barbecue where I invited Sarah, but she politely declined because her sister was visiting from out of town. I suggested she bring her sister along. Emily was a hot blonde, and on Monday Sarah laughed and told me that Emily had fallen in love with me at first sight. I just laughed and said that I mustn't let Amanda know. She can be inexplicably jealous sometimes. Now Sarah says she has a crush on me, and I never thought she'd feel that way. Well, I said, half jokingly, then Emily will have to come in second place and you're first. I'm not kidding at all, boss. I'm serious. Sarah, you might not think so when you hear my terms. On what terms? She wants a divorce, so I'm going to leave everything up to her and her lover, and I have absolutely no idea what their plans are. Her lover? Sarah asked in surprise. She really cheated? Yeah, it started about a year and a half ago, and I think she finally decided that the once-in-a-day's rendezvous wasn't enough anymore. So she wanted to develop that relationship full-time. How long have you known? A year and a half, and I've known it almost from the beginning. How did you find out? A friend called me when he saw her enter a motel with a man, and I hired a private investigator to follow her for a week and got all the information I needed. A year and a half and you've done nothing? Sarah asked incredulously. What can I do? Get mad and turn my life upside down? In a state where divorce is a no-fault system and all property is split in half, I have to sell the house and split the money with her, lose my pool, hot tub, carpentry shop, and 3-car garage, and move into an apartment somewhere? No thanks. I've decided to just ignore it and let her continue to cook for me, do my laundry, and clean the house. How could you live with her when you knew she was cheating on you? Sarah asked, frowning. You'd be surprised how quickly love can turn to hate and how quickly hate can turn to indifference. I said softly, I don't believe a man as fit as you can go a year and a half without touching a woman. Who said I was abstinent? I asked rhetorically with a raised eyebrow. I accepted Amanda as long as she wanted, although the frequency did decrease a bit, and I knew I wouldn't touch her on the days she was with him, other than that the only thing that has changed is that I don't have sex anymore, but just sex. Sarah was silent for a moment, then asked, Do you know why she did it? I don't know, but Kevin might not be the first. You think she has others? I can't say for sure, but in our 10 years of marriage, I can remember her having 4 similar mood swings like she's been having with Kevin for the past year and a half. It's just a guess on my part, but I'd almost bet the other times were for the same reason, and if I hadn't been seen and told about it, I probably would have dismissed her most recent behavior as just another one of those women's mood cycles. And maybe I wanted to be wrong, but it doesn't matter anymore. I know exactly what happened this time, and that's enough for me to realize she's a betrayer. What are you going to do next? Wait. Wait for what? Waiting to see what she plans to do next. I've emptied the bank account, canceled her credit cards, and told her to get out of the house. She wants a divorce, so I've decided to give her the initiative, but she doesn't make enough to make ends meet to pay for a lawyer. She'll need to get the money for a lawyer from Kevin. I don't know if he'll give it to her. I'm guessing that they've already discussed it before she filed for divorce with me this issue, but I have no way of knowing. I paused and looked Sarah in the eye and said, So if you're really interested in me, you're going to have to accept that you're going to have to go out with a married man, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to finalize my divorce. This night, under the soft lights of the restaurant, our conversation made all the difference. Maybe that's how life works. Just when you think you've lost everything, a new opportunity creeps in. But I know that the rest of the day won't be smooth sailing, and this is just the beginning. Sarah's right. I have to take control. I pulled out my cell phone and speed dialed Thomas's number. Thomas and I have been good friends since the 3rd grade and are now a family law attorney specializing in divorce cases. When he picked up the phone, I made my intentions clear straight away. I need your legal services. Then, after briefly explaining the current situation, even though Thomas and his wife Jessica are both friends of ours and they both like Amanda, he expressed his sympathy and promised to get on top of it as soon as he got to the office the next day. He asked me to come to his office at lunchtime to sign papers, and then we could have lunch together. Just then, I had a sudden thought and deliberately said, I also want a restraining order. A restraining order? Why? Thomas sounded a little confused. I lied. Amanda said Kevin would come and teach me a lesson if I got her in trouble. Thomas laughed. We both know that's pure bullshit, but I'm going to help you with this restraining order anyway. But just so you know, the order has to go through a court hearing in 10 days before it can remain in effect. I know, I replied. But the most important thing now is to get her out of the house and not to come back for a while. We don't have any children, so she doesn't have any reason to use the house while the divorce is going on. I adhere to the principle that possession is 9/10 of the law, and there is no reason for the judge to let me move out and let her live in. And that's what I am aiming to do. And this morning I told her to move out, but I don't know what I will find when I come home and find out what's going on. She may be gone, or she may still be there. Since we're not sure where she'll be, we'll serve the papers where she works, Thomas suggested. I'll see you tomorrow. After hanging up, I looked at Sarah and asked, what are your plans for this weekend? She gave a charming smile and began to detail her plan. I must admit, these plans do sound tempting. When she got home, Amanda was sitting at the kitchen table looking over some papers. Why are you still here? I asked as I walked towards the fridge to get a beer. This is my house too. I'll stay here until I find another place to live. If you don't like sharing a room with me, you can move out. Don't even think about it. Sit down and let's discuss what to do next. There's nothing to discuss. I opened my beer and took a sip. I know what I'm going to do. I don't care what you're going to do. There are some things to discuss, William. No, Amanda, there's nothing to discuss at all. It's simple. You say you want a divorce, so go ahead. You'll need to hire a lawyer, file the paperwork, pay all the court costs, and I'll argue every little thing. We live in a no-fault state. Everything is 50-50, so it's got to be decided who gets what. And I'll drag out the process so your lawyer's fees keep going up and up. You know lawyers aren't free, right? I paused and added, you want the coffee table? Guess what? I want it too. And you want the couch? Sorry, it has special sentimental value to me, and I have to keep it. How did you suddenly become like this? Before you didn't care about any of this. When I said I wanted a divorce, you didn't even show any emotion. You just told me to pack up and leave. I looked her straight in the eye and decided to take a gamble. I let you off the hook the first 3 times because you didn't ask for a divorce. And I love you enough to stay silent and continue to be with you because you always come back to me. When I mentioned the first 3 times, she turned her head, a subtle gesture that seemed to confirm my suspicions. It's hard to say why I stayed with you, I continued. I didn't file for divorce. I thought maybe I did something to really piss you off, and you had to get back at me that way. That eventually you'd always end up ending your affair. And I stupidly thought it was because you realized you loved me that you came back. I looked down at the stains on the floor and my voice turned a little cold and hard. I thought that this time with Kevin was just a repeat of all those things that happened before, but now I see that I was wrong. And I've finally come to realize that you're nothing but a low-life betrayer, and that if you hadn't decided to leave me to marry Kevin and end the relationship, you'd be in some asshole's bed again 6 months or a year from now. I felt a sudden surge of anger well up in me at the thought. Come to think of it, I do need some form of revenge. What I'd really like to do is to take a belt and whip you until your skin is broken and you bleed out on the floor, but that would just land me in jail. And the only thing I can do to make this divorce as difficult and expensive as possible is to make it as difficult and expensive as possible. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. You're right. This is your home too. And if you decide to stay, I have to accept that, but I don't have to like it or talk to you. Move your stuff to one of the guest rooms and stay away from me. When I finished, I took the last sip of my beer and went upstairs to get ready for bed. I think I've accomplished my intended purpose by giving her something to think about. She needs to discuss it all with Kevin, make a decision, and it all takes time. And that time is what Thomas used as an opportunity to serve divorce papers and restraining orders. Of course, I could be thinking wrong. Maybe Amanda's already met with a lawyer, and the papers are on their way to me. But given the balance on my credit card when I canceled it, and the amount of cash taken from the bank, if she had already met with an attorney, she would have used our joint money to pay the fees. And of course, Kevin may have paid his attorney's fees. Now all I can do is wait and hope Thomas gets a head start. Lying in bed, I thought back over the long day. From the morning Amanda filed for divorce to now lying in this bed that used to belong to both of us, it all seems like a ridiculous dream. But I know that this is not a dream, but a new chapter of my life about to begin. The next morning, I left the house before Amanda woke up and went to a breakfast place for brunch. Jenny, the waitress, asked me, "Where's Amanda? I always see you two together, and this is the second day in a row you've come by yourself. You won't even see us together again. We're splitting up," I said calmly. "I see," she said, adding as she placed my order, "My phone number is written on the back of the bill, not the restaurant's number, my private number." As I watched Jenny walk away, I was lost in thought. In just 2 days, two women had already expressed interest in me. So why am I not good enough for my married wife? It's a question I'll never know the answer to because I'll never ask it. I sipped my coffee as I waited for the time when Amanda usually left for work. When it was about time, I came home and started packing up Amanda's things and moving them into the garage. At 10:15, Thomas called to say the papers had been delivered. I immediately contacted a locksmith, and within 20 minutes he arrived and started working. Less than an hour later, Amanda's car sped into the driveway. There was no way she couldn't have seen the open garage door and the prominent cardboard notice, "Amanda, all your stuff is in the garage." She stood there staring at the notice for a moment, then tried to enter the house. But of course, her key didn't work anymore. She rang the doorbell, but I didn't answer. In the end, she had to leave. I peeked into the garage and realized she had taken a couple of bags. Just 2 minutes after she drove off, my cell phone rang. "You asshole," Amanda growled on the other end of the line. "Did you really have to humiliate me in front of my coworkers?" "Better than having you humiliate me in front of my coworkers," I replied calmly. "What's the meaning of this damn restraining order?" "You know why? I was worried you were going to have Kevin lecture me for being rude to you. I need to go inside and get some things." "All your stuff is in the garage, Amanda. I didn't change the code on the garage door, so your remote still works. If you need things that aren't there, let me know where I am, and I'll move them to the garage." "Don't be ridiculous, William. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be." "I'm sorry, Amanda. Some inconvenience to you is not sufficient revenge for all the torture you've put me through over the years, but I had to do something for the sake of my own mental health, and you should be thankful that I didn't act violently. Goodbye." After hanging up, I started calling people on the list. Most people were shocked by the news of Amanda's cheating, but two people surprised me with their reactions. One says, "Finally got her, huh?" Another said, "I always thought you guys had an open marriage, that she was always going out with different guys and you never mentioned it." I mentally crossed those two off my friends list. Amanda's parents were the hardest hit and tried to tell me there must be some kind of misunderstanding. I've always loved them, and they treat me almost as if I were the son I never had. But I couldn't let Amanda use her version to frame me and make them think badly of me. After dealing with those calls, I went through the house again, collecting what was left of Amanda's belongings. Just as I was finishing my lunch, the security company came. Obviously, I didn't trust Amanda at all to comply with the restraining order, so I decided to install a full security system, including cameras. After what happened at Amanda's workplace on Thursday, I told Sarah we could start our weekend plans. She gave a big smile. "How about tomorrow night? Dinner and dancing first?" When I got home, Amanda did exactly what I expected. She moved some things and then broke into the house through the garage's connecting door. The kitchen was a mess, with plates and glasses broken all over the place. In the living room, several table lamps were broken. But what brought a smile to my face was seeing her drag all my clothes out of the closet, pile them on the floor, and pee on them. All of this was captured on video, which not only proved that she had violated the restraining order, but also exhibited malicious and destructive behavior. All of this will be compelling evidence at the restraining order hearing. I called Thomas, and he contacted the police. They came, made statements, took pictures. The next day, Amanda was arrested at work, taken to jail to be photographed and fingerprinted, and then brought before a judge and charged with violating a restraining order and willful destruction of private property. To my surprise, the judge set a hearing date and allowed Amanda to be released on her own recognizance. Despite all the chaos, Sarah and I had a great date. We made another date for Saturday and had a great time that day as well. We enjoyed a nice picnic together on Sunday. At Monday's restraining order hearing, when the judge saw the footage from the security cameras, not only did he make the restraining order permanent, But he also ordered her to make restitution for all of the destroyed items, pay for the dry cleaning of my clothes, and pay for the cleaning of the bedroom. He gave her 10 days to respond or be jailed for contempt. Just to piss her off, I got the most expensive cleaning company to do the job. To my dismay, Amanda managed to raise the money and accomplish everything the judge asked. I didn't get to see her jailed for contempt. Sarah and I saw each other regularly over the next 2 weeks, but nothing happened except for some rather passionate kissing, as we both felt it was inappropriate while I was still married. However, our relationship is slowly moving in a serious direction. The divorce was finalized without delay, 6 months later. It's a standard no-fault divorce with all property divided equally. I refinanced my loan to buy Amanda's share of the house. I've been keeping money in my personal account for an anticipated anniversary trip around the world, and since she doesn't know the money exists, I haven't given her a dime. She also didn't know about the 2-time deposits I bought with my last 2 bonus checks in the safe deposit box. I also won a small victory. Amanda was awarded alimony for 2 years, or until she remarries, but in the amount of only $100 a week instead of the $500 she was trying to get. This was unexpected, and Thomas told me it was because we were very fortunate in the assignment of judges. The judge presiding over the restraining order hearing and the judge in charge of the divorce case are cousins who apparently discussed the case and have both had cheating wives. Both judges agreed that the innocent husband should not be punished for his wife's betrayal. While they followed the law, they did not go beyond what the law required. Apparently, Amanda and Kevin's relationship isn't as rosy as it seems. 7 months after the divorce was finalized, she moved back in with her parents. And one day, 8 months after my divorce, I was sitting in the bar of the Hilton Hotel, enjoying a steak sandwich and a beer for lunch. Just then, someone sat down on the high stool next to me and asked, "Can I buy you a beer?" I turned my head and realized that sitting next to me was actually Kevin, my ex-wife's ex-lover. Out of curiosity, I nodded my head in agreement. He signaled Betty, the bartender, and ordered beers for both of us. When the beer came up, he took a sip and set the glass on the bar, staring at it for a few moments. He began to tear the labels from the beer bottles, piling a small pile of shredded paper in front of him. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't mean to screw up your life," he said, still not looking up. She wasn't wearing a wedding ring the night I met her. I had no idea she was married, and she didn't act like a married woman at all. He continued, "She was at Buddy's that night with a group of coworkers. I asked her to dance and she said yes. I bought her a drink. She invited me to sit with them and we danced 3 more times. And when I asked her out, she agreed." Kevin paused and took a sip of his beer before continuing. "I fell in love with her very quickly, and within a month we started having sex. At first, we could only go to motels because I was living with 2 roommates, and there was always someone at home. We couldn't go to her place because she said she was living with her disabled mother, which explained why we couldn't see each other very often. She said that the only time that someone else could look after her mother when she can come out. Then I got my own apartment, so I didn't have to go to motels, and although I saw her irregularly, I loved her deeply and planned to propose to her. And I planned to buy a house big enough for the 2 of us and her mother. But just before I was ready to propose, someone I knew asked me why I was dating a liar. I was about to theorize with him when he told me that Amanda was married and had a history of cheating on her. It turns out that she had a relationship with his brother 2 years ago, and when her husband found out his brother ended it, at first I had a hard time believing it until I got your letter. I thought about it for a week before I confronted her. She broke down and cried and said she didn't love you. She said you were an abusive drunk who physically and mentally abused her. She claimed she hated you but was afraid to leave because you threatened to track her down and kill her and anyone who was with her." Kevin took another sip of his beer. By then I'd already investigated and knew she was lying, which put me off the idea of getting married. But she's really good in bed. And now that you've kicked her out, I'm letting her move in with me, but only if she's willing to stay in a sexual relationship with me. Everything was going well until she started talking about marriage after the divorce was finalized. That's when I ended it. My parents were divorced because my mother cheated on me. My father got custody of me. Then she remarried but got caught cheating on me. She cheated again on her 3rd marriage. I'm a firm believer in the saying, once a betrayal, always a betrayal. So I told Amanda in no uncertain terms that as long as she was okay with the shelling out relationship, Don't think anything more than that, and about 3 weeks later, I came home from work to find that she had moved out. He took another sip of his beer and said, "There are rumors that I've been aware of your marital relationship, and I'd like to know why you didn't get an immediate divorce." I shrugged, like you said. She's really good in bed, and I've decided to keep things the way they are. Enjoying the sex and having someone to cook, clean the house, and do my laundry. And if she hadn't asked to leave and wanted a divorce, I probably would have kept it that way. He took another sip and added, "I never thought I'd say this to you, especially not to you, but I really miss her in bed." He took the last sip of his beer, stood up, and walked away. When I got back to my office, my assistant Lily looked at me and said, "You look like a cat who stole the lunch. Was it really that good?" I laughed. Lunch sure was impressive. "By the way," Lily said, suddenly remembering something, "Sarah's not under you anymore, is she?" "Yes," I smiled. "She's at home preparing the nursery for the upcoming twins." Life is always full of surprises, like a never-ending cycle. When a relationship ends, it often means another, better beginning. Amanda's betrayal brought me pain, but it also led me to meet Sarah, and the lottery ticket that was meant to be a jab at Kevin brought unexpected riches. Looking at the picture of Sarah and I on my desk, thinking about the nursery being renovated at home, and the staggeringly large check in my pocket, I suddenly realized that sometimes a loss can be a gain. What was once thought to be a nightmare experience ended up being a much better dream. Maybe that's the true meaning of life. When you think it's all over, it's really just a prelude to another fresh start. And now, my new chapter is unfolding, full of love, anticipation, and hope. This story, after all, has an unexpected happy ending. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.